सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Full-fledged politics has broken out, especially within the opposition, over the central government's ordinance now, which will go to parliament in the coming monsoon session. Ordinance now basically setting aside or neutralizing the 5-judge constitution bench order by the Supreme Court of India, restoring statehood in many ways to Delhi, or restoring the powers of a state government, even of a quasi-state government, to the Kejriwal government of Delhi. Now, that question had been pending before the court for quite some time. It has gone through many rounds of judicial challenges, and I will give you a listing very soon as we go ahead. But the fact is that this 5-judge constitutional bench had said that the elected government of Delhi has many of the powers of any other state government. It's not a non-government. That government, for example, has control over its services, barring those issues which are barred. That is law, public order, which includes the police, and also land. Those remain with the center. Besides that, we know that Delhi itself has this enclave, if you can call something in the heart of a city to be an enclave, but maybe an island called Lutyens Delhi, which is governed under a different structure, because that is like the capital territory. That's the seat of the central government. That is governed by NDMC. That's a separate entity under the central government. In the rest of the state, all other things except that is law and public order, which means significantly the police and land. Except these, the rest will remain with the state government. Now, central government's ordinance has pretty much neutralized that. That judgment was passed by a 5-member constitutional bench, which is a sizable constitutional bench. 5-member constitutional bench led by Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, M.R. Shah, who just retired. Among the senior judges, Justice Krishna Murari, Justice Hema Kohli, and Justice D.S. Narasimha. That now has been set aside. In a way, I mean, set aside is maybe not the best expression to use for a government ordinance or government law, in reference to a Supreme Court decision, but that is the effect of this ordinance. This ordinance pretty much says that anything that this judgment said, any difference that this judgment said is now besides the point, because we are now setting the law again. And of course, the Parliament has to right to pass a law. Once again, the law can be challenged in the Supreme Court of India. Now, what does this ordinance say? We told you what did the 5-judge bench say. This ordinance now, NCT Amendment Ordinance of 2023, the key element of this ordinance is that it sets up something called National Capital Civil Services Authority, NCCSA. Now, what is this new acronym? NCCSA. NCCSA says that this will set up a 3-member committee. That Delhi will have a 3-member committee, which will then decide by majority on postings, transfers, on key services-related issues. Services-related issues means what happens to civil services officers working in Delhi, and also Delhi's own civil services. For example, many states have their own civil services. So those issues will now be decided not by the state cabinet, not by the state chief minister, but it will be a committee consisting of 3, where the chief minister will preside. So he'll be the first among the equals, or the other 2 will have the same status, right? The same. One man, one vote, or one person, one vote. So chief minister, the chief secretary, and principal secretary for home affairs. So 2 secretaries, 2 civil servants who report to the chief minister, they will sit on a committee and each one will have an equal vote. So any decision taken by them will have to be taken by a majority, and you can then conjure up a scenario. In fact, I find it difficult to conjure up a scenario where the chief minister and one of the officers will be on one side and another officer, the third officer, will be on the other. Can the home secretary be on one side while the chief minister and the chief secretary are together? Or if the chief minister and the home secretary are together, can the chief secretary be on the other side Or if the chief secretary is deciding to stay on the other side, will the home secretary then have the courage to go with the chief minister? So this is a bit of a non-starter. Any decision that this committee takes, that is NCCSA, will then go to Lieutenant Governor for his clearance. This recommendation of this committee also, NCCSA, is not binding on the Lieutenant Governor. If he so wishes, he can send it back to the committee for reconsideration. And as we know, that game can then go on and on and on. And in case there is a difference of opinion, the ordinance says, then the LG's view will be final. Now, once again, in a committee of 3, which decides by majority vote, how can there be a difference of opinion that goes to the LG? I don't understand, unless all 3 refuse to vote on some issue, right? Basically, you can analyze it any which way, but what this means is that with this, the Delhi Chief Minister and the Delhi government, elected government, really has no power over its services, over the officers who work under them or who work for them. This is besides the fact, in addition to the fact that they have no power over issues of law, public order, red police, and land, which means the Delhi government is then reduced to being a ceremonial government. Now, the ordinance doesn't just stop at this. The ordinance also says that this committee, NCCSA, that is 2 secretaries and 1 chief minister, equal vote, this will also make policies related to ensuring better public services, which means distribution of rations in the city, provisions in the city, I don't know, stuff like that, maybe electricity, water services, and ensuring good governance. Now, what is good governance will then be left to the interpretation of 50 judges or maybe 5 generations of judges going ahead. So the whole thing, basically the impact. Read the letter of the law, read also the spirit of the law. If you read this, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law both mean the same thing, that Delhi ceases to be a state. It can be a state just for the namesakes, but it is not a state. In fact, it's much less of a state than it already was. Delhi was always half a state. It started out being half a state, then it became 1/4 of a state. With this ordinance, I would say it mostly ceases to be a state, because if a committee that includes the chief ministers and 2 of the secretaries who effectively report to the office of the chief minister, if they are going to govern the city, then you might as well say that Delhi is not a state anymore. Now, many things have happened post 2015, because something interesting happened in 2015. That's when Aam Aadmi Party came to power with a sizable majority. Now, that's not something obviously that the new BJP government liked, because this new BJP government was in majority in Delhi. So immediately, the new BJP government issued a notification, that is the Ministry of Home Affairs issued a notification putting many powers out of the purview of the elected government. One of these was services. So the whole fight these years, since 2015 until now, 8 years, has been about control over the services, or in other words, over control of the bureaucracy. Now, the fact is that the central government claimed, and has been claiming since then, that the amendment to the Constitution, 69th Amendment to the Constitution, which was carried out in 1991 under P.V. Narasimha Rao's government, that created a special status for Delhi as a quasi-state under Article 239 AA of the Constitution. That left the centre powers to make special provisions for Delhi, and centre used those powers to pass that notification in 2015. Aam Aadmi Party government went to court in protest. Delhi High Court initially ruled in favor of the centre. It also said that some of the commissions of inquiry that the Delhi government had set up were illegal, because commissions of inquiry in case of Delhi, because Delhi is not a full-fledged state, its government does not have the power to set up commissions of inquiry as state governments elsewhere might do in full-fledged states. In case of Delhi, only the central government has the power to set up commissions of inquiry. Now, of the commissions of inquiry that Aam Aadmi Party set up, there were some interesting ones. For example, there was one on CNG fitness kit scam that I don't know very much about, but definitely there was one about DDCA, about corruption in Delhi District Cricket Association. That inquiry commission immediately and directly targeted Arun Jaitley, who was a key figure in the BJP, who was a key figure in the Modi government, holding multiple portfolios. In fact, in that limited period, he held the portfolios of defense, of finance, corporate affairs, and what else besides being among the most visible faces of that cabinet, of that Modi government, the first Modi government. So the High Court held these notifications valid. After which there were further challenges. In 2018, a constitution bench of the Supreme Court. This constitution bench, 5-bench constitution bench had Justice Deepak Mishra, A.K. Sikri, A.M. Khanwilkar, Justice Chandrachud, and Ashok Bhushan. They together decided on the principle, and the principle was that Delhi state government should have most of the powers of a state government besides those that had been specifically excluded. These specific exclusions were actually listed. 3 exceptions were listed in the amendment to Article 239AA, that is the 69th amendment to the Constitution. And these 3 exceptions, we've told you several times before were law, public order, and land. Besides these 5 judges said the state government had all the powers of, or more or less, all the powers of any other state government. Then these 5 judges said that there are many other challenges on specific issues. Those specific issues we can't deal with. We are a large constitutional bench. These are matters of detail and minutiae. So they set up another 2-judge bench. These 2 judges were already members of the 5-judge constitution bench. So 2 of them, Justice Ashok Bhushan and Justice A.K. Sikri, they then constituted the next bench that was looking at specific issues raised in the earlier AAP challenge to the MHA notifications. Now the key issue again became control over services. On that key issue, these 2 judges disagreed and they took contrary positions. So once the 2 judges disagreed, this went to a 3-judge bench. All of this is happening between 2018 and 2019. This question now goes, question of control of services goes to a 3-judge bench, that is Justice Ramana, who was then Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant, and Justice Hema Kohli, who by the way was also one of the judges on the latest constitution bench. As this began hearing this, in 2022, this went on until 2022, as they began hearing this, Centre went there and Centre said that, look, we are not happy with the 3-judge bench. This is a very important question, and one of the questions that the first constitution bench did not interpret with clarity is the expression in the constitutional amendment to Article 239AA, which says, insofar as any such matter as applicable to union territories. Now, what the Centre said was, while the exceptions to statehood in 239A after the 69th amendment of the Constitution were law, public order, and land. This expression, quote unquote, insofar as any such matter as applicable to union territories in 239A. So the Centre said, we believe the letter of this law says that these 3 are excluded, but we can also decide on any other issue as we choose, right? The court has failed to address this concern. That's why, because that was a 5-judge bench, this one also should be a 5-judge bench. So this 3-judge bench then yielded to a 5-judge constitution bench. So once again, the sequence, the Delhi High Court judgment challenged in the Supreme Court goes to a 5-judge constitution bench, which decides but asks a 2-judge bench, 2 judges who go out of the same constitution bench to then take a call on some of the specific issues. Those 2 judges disagree. Then they yield to a 3-judge bench. Then the Centre says, we want a 5-judge constitution bench. These issues are very serious. It is the judgment of that constitution bench, which the Centre had asked for, which has now ruled that Delhi government, the elected government of Delhi, should have most of the powers of a state government, that is all the powers barring the 3 specifically excluded in the constitutional amendment to Article 239A, that is, once again I speak like a broken record, law, public order, and land, which means services will be under the state government. As this Supreme Court judgment came out, among the first things Kejriwal government did was to order some transfers, because after all, they now have the power to rule over the services, and that's when the centre responded with such alacrity and such urgency. So what's happening right now is that Aam Aadmi Party is going to other opposition parties all over the country, hoping somehow that if they get together, they have the numbers. In fact, if all of the opposition, that is, if you can describe Naveen Patnaik's BJD and Jagan Mohan Reddy's YSRCP as opposition parties, if they are opposition parties, they have the numbers then to upstage the BJP in Rajya Sabha, because numbers in Rajya Sabha are very tight for the BJP. So the current strength of Rajya Sabha is 239, although the full strength is 245. Current strength is 239. So you need about 120 to go to the halfway mark. NDA and allies have 106. So they have 16 short. Right, they have 16 short. Then opposition, all the opposition which is together has 105. So opposition needs 22 more to upstage the BJP. BJP needs 16 more to have the ordinance passed. Now, where will these seats, these votes come from? 18 of them will come from BJD and YSR, 9 each. BJD has 9, YSRCP has 9. Will they vote with the BJP? Will they be seen to be voting with the BJP on an issue where a federal principle is involved? That is what Kejriwal and the other opposition leaders are campaigning on. And that's why these developments in the little city-state of Delhi have opened up national politics. Having said that, let me also tell you a little bit about how Delhi got here in terms of this half statehood. So full statehood for Delhi was very much a BJP demand in the 1980s. In fact, we used to know Madan Lal Khurana. He was a much loved Delhi leader and a very friendly Delhi leader. We spent a lot of time with him as reporters. He had enormous amount of time for journalists. He campaigned very strongly to become Delhi's chief minister. As a result of that campaign in 1991, Narasimha Rao's government passed this 69th constitutional amendment. Because BJP had campaigned so hard for statehood, BJP was rewarded for it. 1993, BJP won the election, the first election in Delhi as a state. Madan Lal Khurana became the chief minister, but soon enough he realized that he had very limited power. So while he became chief minister, he said at one point that, look, my assembly looks like a body without a soul, because it had no power really. Right? And after that, he was succeeded by Sahib Singh, Chaudhry Sahib Singh, whose son now is a BJP MP. Sahib Singh also said that, look, I'd rather return to farming than be a powerless chief minister of Delhi. So all of them wanted more power for the chief minister and for the elected government of Delhi. Sahib Singh was then succeeded by Sushma Swaraj, and then came that famous or infamous onion election, and Sushma Swaraj, it was under her charge that BJP lost power in Delhi. BJP hasn't got power in Delhi since 1998, because after that Sheila Dikshit had a long tenure, and after Sheila Dikshit, it's Aam Aadmi Party. So at some level that might hurt as well. So the fact is that we had seen some indications of this. In 2015 elections in Delhi, BJP did not come up with an election manifesto. It came up instead with a vision document. What's the difference? I leave it to you to decide. The difference is that a manifesto is issued for a country or a state. A vision document for something that is holding an election but is not quite a state. Even by 2015, it was evident that the BJP government was developing second thoughts on whether Delhi deserves full statehood or not.